sometimes we hold on to what we feel like we can't let go of and drag it through cycle to cycle, creating burden upon ourselves in the process. And obviously, that burden then translates into dis-ease, pain, psychological pain.
About cleansing, often we think about doing something hard, like a detox and something to do with food. But actually, it's a much bigger subject where we can look at letting go of things in our life that no longer serve us. And I've just returned from an amazing trip in to Cape Town, South Africa, where I'm from. And I looked around my circle and there were a couple of girlfriends that who look incredible and have manifested the most beautiful lives. They live in joy, happiness. They have raised incredible children and really created lives of abundance, joy, and intrinsic health. Creating a lifetime of health is a practice. It's not big things like doing huge detoxes or going somewhere. It's about small steps we do in our day-to-day life that can create a health span, a long health span, a long life of healthiness and aliveness and joy, no matter what age you're in. My journey, I'd say, started when I was 35, when I went to India and I started opening myself up to new ways of being. And naturally, many things in my life fell away. And then my sister died, my older sister died of breast cancer in 2010. And it was the first time I really was really shocked and got a big wake-up call to create my own health. So every year I used to do these intense and amazing cleanses of really cleaning out everything in my system, not eating, fasting, and finding this new wave of health. And now as I'm getting older, I find that's quite extreme to do such strong fasting and detoxing and colonics and cleansings. And I try and bring this into my day-to-day practice of life for a longer term, more sustainable way of constantly cleaning and allowing the body to repair itself and heal. I also am a huge fan of hot yoga and sweating. So I love to sweat. And the skin that we have, it cleans everything. To breathe through the lungs, we just let go of so much. So yeah, the more I let go of things, the better my life becomes somehow. And in universal healing, we work with the human energy field. So what does this mean when we work with clearing and cleansing the energy field? And this is actually a very technical, actually when they clear the levels of the energy field, which we do in every single healing, they work with each level independently and together. So in the first level, which is this level of lines of light, blue lines of light, which feeds every single cell individually in the body and is very close to our physical body. There are parts of the body where there's excess of energy and other parts where there's deficits in the lines of light. And the healers work with spreading the energy and balancing the energy to the surrounding areas to get everything connected, balanced, and functioning, the whole energy field. Then when we work with the second level is the emotional field. And we work with clearing and moving things out of this level. So really cleansing things out of this level of the field. Emotions that are not recognized or that we want to numb or become stagnated. And when the healers move the energy, it becomes bright and colorful. When it is stagnant, it's more gray, dark, with the stuck emotions that we don't want to feel, or emotions that are in a loop. The healers move or clear these dense blocks of pure emotion that's not with a story. With a third level, which is the structured level of yellow lines of light, it's the mental level, where we hold our limiting thoughts and beliefs and ideas, and they sit as part of the structure. And the energy in this level can become accumulated in some areas and others much weaker. And the energy needs to keep moving so that the intensity is evenly spread. If it's too intense in one place, it can create conflict or illness. And the same if there's an area of deficit. There's not a natural flow, which our healers work on bringing back the balance to this natural flow and energy. The fourth level of the field is the relational level, where you're in relationship with others, nature, life experiences, even past lives. This is where the healers can find time capsules, where the energy is stagnant from a traumatic situation and it stays latent and influences the biological systems. The time capsule is a wounding from the past that has not been integrated or transformed or processed and just sits there like a block, conditioning the energy around it. If you have a block, for example, preventing the heart chakra from working, say from a deep heartbreak that you have not processed, it will be difficult to trust, love, and open to others. And if it stays there, you may develop a heart condition in the physical body. The fifth level of the energy field is divine will or precision. It's a structured or more empty level. And it's a template for the physical body, or the first level. So to cleanse this level is to cleanse the misunderstandings that sit there. And it also prevents us from feeling the unconditional love of the sixth level. And if there are blocks there, or it can stop it or resist the presence of the divine energy in one. So it's more of a restructuring that the healers work with on this level, bringing it back to the template of health. And this is the level where they work with guides and healers that help on these levels. And on the upper levels of the field, they work more with the blocks that prevent these higher levels of divinity from penetrating down through all the other levels into the physical body. So to keep this whole energy field alive and functioning and communicating all the time and in balance and keeping one alive and in total health, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And this beautiful image of all of the 7 levels of the field working together is us in our absolute aliveness and health and vitality. And now we're going to talk in a more practical way of how to cleanse and let go and bring us to this optimum, incredible shining health of the beings that we are. We're going to talk to Carin Dean-Wales, who will talk about letting go in a more in an emotional and psychological sense of cleansing.
I am traditionally a more business orientated person, but progressively over my period of time of life, have explored why I think whatever your starting point is, whether it's be the business side or whether more commercial, more capitalistic approach, or whether it's a more holistic approach, life is cyclical. We have one big cycle of life, which is our birth to our death, but within that there's cycle within cycle within cycle, and we go through these various different life cycles. And so say some of them may be childhood and puberty and pregnancy and menopause and all sorts of cycles that we go through, and moving from one cycle to another, kind of like nature does, is that we need to shed. So we need to shed whatever doesn't serve us anymore so that we can best move into the next cycle as well as we can. And that shedding process would be considered a cleanse on some level. And I think sometimes we hold on to what we feel like we can't let go of and drag it through cycle to cycle, creating burden upon ourselves in the process. And obviously that burden then translates into dis-ease, pain, psychological pain. And so how do we let go of stuff? How do we cleanse ourselves of things that we don't need in order to move forward? And I've found multiple different ways of doing that, but it's sometimes just simple things. And just as an example, I've got like a lot of hair, and in a sense my hair, and I've been tied up, but it's also wild and bushy when it's down. And in a sense, I guess I hold onto this hair because it becomes a big part of my identity. But in more than one occasion in my life, I've been brought to a point where I feel like the hair needs to go, and I cut my hair. And I cut it short. I don't just cut it into a bob or into a slightly shorter cut. I cut it. And sometimes we hold on to this dead energy. And so cutting it and letting it go let go certain parts of your identity that you've held onto for such a long time. And letting it go allows you to refresh. It's going to grow back again. It's always going to grow back again. As with so many things, is no matter how many winter seasons we go through, spring will always come back again. And I think our fear as humans is to not let winter happen. And so we scramble to carry on having spring and summer so that we don't lose our leaves and we don't lose anything, and we can carry on building on top of that. But in actual fact, it's a big liberation, letting go. And I find relationships with humans similar, where you find that you've held onto relationships, friendships, probably one of the biggest ones, family relationships as well, out of legacy, out of feeling like I need to be holding onto this because I've always had it. So because I've always had it, I need to carry on having it. But in actual fact, sometimes it's like the hair. It's dead and it doesn't serve us anymore. And we need to let it go for something new to come out.
You're really about the energetic letting go of things in life. And often when we talk about cleansing or letting, we talk about something very physical. And I feel that it's the same thing essentially, but everything manifests in our body ultimately. So the things that you're talking about, like letting go of toxic relationships, letting go of patterns, of old behaviors, like that affects our body, our physical well-being hugely as well. And I mean, we can talk about, I know that you work so much with food as medicine. So food is such a medicine in our body, and how we can look at that as a way of letting go or healing the body. But I think these aspects you're talking about are as important, perhaps, maybe more important, because some people can also fixate onto the elements of the body that we hold on to in our physical body. But these other aspects of our lives make our body and our being and give us the mental health and the capacity to live a life of joy. And as you said, when you just let go of things, you create space for the new to manifest.
Absolutely. And the thing is that at the time that we have it, that it does serve us. So everything that we've had over our various seasons or cycles of our personal existence, but also of the existence of humankind, have been important. So the friendships that we've had at the time that they've had them, or the relationships that we've had at the time that we've had them, have served us. The experiences we have served us. It's all served us in a particular way. Even if we do have a look at the nutritional thing, at some point the food served us, but but we've moved on from it, and at some stage when you let it go, because it doesn't serve us anymore, and it's being able to recognize when something is not serving you any longer and is becoming burdensome. How do you let it go? And as you say, it could be institutional things, it could be systemic things, it could be community-based things that don't serve us. It could be a community that doesn't serve us anymore. It could be friendships that don't serve us. It could be family members that don't serve us. It could be physical things that don't serve us anymore. And at the time, they did serve us. They've all formed a crucial role in our evolution and in our cycle within our cycle within our cycle to bring us to where we are. But holding on to those are as damaging as holding on to the internal gunk that we hold on to when we're not cleansing ourselves internally. That it becomes a weight. It becomes burdensome. And if we have a look at it again, if we have a look at the analogy with our digestive system, when we clog up our digestive system with lots and lots of junk without ever cleansing it out again, it becomes labored. It doesn't function as well. It creates discomfort within us. A lethargic digestive system creates bloating, creates constipation, creates all sorts of things. And the same thing happens to us energetically when we are not letting go of the stuff that we don't need anymore. We just create this burden that we feel physically. We feel it physically, but it manifests itself in all different ways, and it might manifest ourselves in inflammation or in aggravation, in trauma. And I had a saying recently, I heard a saying recently, which goes along the thing of, I've traveled a long, long road with many ups and downs, and that's all behind me now. We need to let that stuff behind us. We need to sometimes move forward. Where's the new road taking us? Where's the next adventure, where are we going to next? But as long as we holding on energetically to all the stuff that disallows us from moving forward, we just don't move forward. We're sluggish. We become sluggish. We become energetically sluggish.
Yeah, and I mean, I think obviously in universal healing, we're working with the energy, the human energy field. So I think what's also so important when you work with that and the 7 levels of the energy field is that how things sit on the outside of our fields, you know, in different layers of the field. And if we don't let go of them energetically, they ultimately come closer and closer and closer and manifest in our, you know, our emotional energy field and then into our physical body. And that's where illness and disease really manifests. And things like serious things happen, like cancer and tumors and you know, real disease, chronic illness. And
absolutely,
it's also just to constantly be letting go of things is almost a practice, and it's a very hard thing. And I think the older you get, the harder it becomes to really let go of things, because they, as you said, they become your identity.
They do become your identity, and that's why for me, as I said, the cutting your hair thing is such an interesting thing, because it is, again, it's a big gesture of letting go without feeling like you've had to let it go a lot of stuff. So it's a good way, it's a good space to practice. But the other thing that I find that works particularly well for me is to have a look at what type of life am I looking for? And again, what my type of life in my 20s or my 30s or my 40s, etc., looks like versus perhaps my type of life today is not the same. But what life am I looking for? And therefore, what that I have is serving that life that I'm looking for, and what is not. So, for example, I was previously married, and I was married to somebody who had a drug habit. And so they would be clean for a while, and then they'd go into rehab for a while, and clean for a while, and go into rehab for a while. And at some point, I took a step back, and even though I deeply loved this person, and I had made a marital commitment that I wasn't just going to bail when, you know, the shit hit the fan. Sorry about my language. But I looked at this at some stage, and I decided this is not what I wanted for my life. This is not how I saw my life working. This is not the life that I wanted to participate in. And I therefore needed to cleanse myself of this particular lifestyle, because it wasn't going to serve me. And yes, I could have stayed in it, and I could have got stuck in it for a long time. And we had a child, and there were all sorts of reasons why I could have and should have and maybe would have stayed in it, except that I had decided this was not what I wanted out of my life. This was not where I saw myself. And I think that we do that in jobs, in places that we stay in, as I say, in relationships that we have, that we don't stop to step back and say, is this fulfilling my full purpose in this life? And if it's not fulfilling my full purpose in my life, what do I need to let go of? What do I need to cleanse my life of in order for me to be able to fulfill my full purpose in life? Because otherwise I'm living a life, I'm eating food that doesn't serve me, I'm living a life that doesn't serve me, I'm participating in things that don't serve me, I'm having relationships that don't serve me. And as you say, all that leads to is discomfort, discontent, and dis-ease.
And so I wanted to talk about menopause. It's also a time of like deep cleansing as a woman, like letting go of all the identities and the things that you felt that you were. And for me, it's a massive time of cleansing, of really letting go of things that don't serve me. As one lets go of things, I feel like my whole endocrine system is resetting.
Absolutely. And I agree with you. And I feel that, again, this is one of the cycles that we resist so much. And so, and then I guess in the polarity of it, we went from a stage of menopause was never spoken about to menopause being this major big topic and a major big pharmaceutical topic. And so we end up swishing back again into a cycle that we're not prepared to just deal with and navigate our way through until we wish it away. So we take whatever we can to make it stop happening, as opposed to sitting in and saying, we're going through a process, we're going through a cycle. What does that cycle feel like for me? What am I gaining from that cycle? What do I need to lose because of that cycle? Because there's also things that we are losing in this process. But like the end of every cycle or every cleansing process, there's stuff that we need to let go of. And yes, on a more functional level, it's obviously things like menstruation and ability to have children. But I think on a psychological and emotional, spiritual level, we're letting go of an expectation that no longer serves us. But how do we not numb that, cleanse it without numbing it? So moving into it and saying, this is the new space that I'm moving into. What does this new space feel like? I don't need to be afraid of this new space. I don't need to resist this new space. I can move into it with grace and with ease, and it is purposeful. Like any cycle, it serves its purpose. And I think that there's a difference between cleansing and numbing. And I think a lot of the time when we don't like what we're supposed to be cleansing, we numb it instead. And I worry that we go from nothing to numbing, as opposed to how do we sit in it and say, I'm consciously moving through this. I'm consciously letting go of the things that I need to let go of. And yeah, I feel sometimes a narrative is a little too, don't go near this, don't feel it, don't be part of it, it's too dangerous, it's too ugly, it's too horrible, just numb it down and move through. You know, sometimes if you are feeling a lot, it tends to be things that are out of balance. And how can you rather bring yourself back into balance again? How, you know, one of the big things, especially when you talk about the endocrine system, is hormones, is how our body's functioning, how our body's processing. And as opposed to numbing it, is there a way that we could sit there and say, what does my body need me to do differently? What does my body need, and what does it need me to do differently? And perhaps address that, and again, feel that, move through it, cyclically go through it. This is just another season. We'll come to the end of that season if we move through it. Otherwise, again, we just stack on our leaves and build them higher and higher, but we just suffocate what we need to be doing.
Yeah, and when one does even physical or any form of cleansing, it does just get rid of that. You know, it allows you the space to see and to feel yourself. And I mean, as you're talking about like numbing down feelings, I'm just thinking of how we also, like, our emotional systems are so stagnant, how we can hold these emotions in and just push them down. And, you know, even simple things like and maybe we're luckier as women to just have a big cry is a deep, deep cleansing of so many levels of just letting go and feeling and perceiving life and what is there for you, and allowing that to just move through you. And I think our systems naturally do that. It's a natural thing. Like the seasons we have in our body, we just have times of like allowing things to let go and hunkering down in the cold of winter. And as you said, it's spring here now. And it's almost, you feel everything starting to just cleanse and run and flow again. And I think our bodies respond to that and feel that. And you feel the life coming back into you as well. All of a sudden, like sounds and aliveness comes when this period of kind of like cleansing happens.
Absolutely. And on the flip side, so we're in fall moving into winter at the moment, and there's also the delight of winding down. You know, the seasons are coming to an end. This particular cycle is coming to end, and allowing the winding down to happen.
Yeah.
And sitting in the hibernating season for a bit, because sometimes we need to do that. We need to rest and restore so that we can come back up again into life. But if we're constantly resisting that or numbing it down, I don't want to be resting. And so here we're talking it from a season, but if we're talking about it from a metaphorical season within ourselves, there are moments in our lives, and perhaps menopause and moving into menopause is one of those where you need to move into a slightly more restful state. You need to move into a deep, a reflective state and rest for a while, and less hardness on your body and less harshness, so that you can get to the other side invigorated and refreshed and blooming, as opposed to carrying on pushing.
Yeah, and I think that if you don't listen to the call of your body, that you actually then find that you burn out. And that's what happened for me. And I also just believe that the body can heal anything and moderate anything. And if we don't consciously do it, our bodies do that through illness or through something. Some practical things that you also do, like just some practices of letting go. And I know that obviously you're so into an avid cold water swimmer, and like what that brings, because that feels also a process of like almost like death and rebirth, and like, you know, or some of the practices in your life that help you with that?
Yeah, I'd say interesting. Absolutely. I mean, the cold water swimming for me is definitely one of those things, and as you know, I can't recommend it enough. And I think that it teaches you a lot about sitting in the discomfort of of dis-ease, or in the, well, this is not actually, I mean, this is not this is lack of ease as opposed to disease. But the discomfort and being able to be comfortable with that so that you can get to the other side, because cleansing can often feel painful, can often feel uncomfortable, because we're letting go of stuff that doesn't serve us anymore. And so the little practices of training yourself of how to sit in discomfort and feel comfortable sitting in discomfort, because I know that once I've sat in that discomfort and I'm going to come out the other side, I am going to feel better as a result of it. And the thing about the cold water swimming is it's something that you can do in a few minutes. I mean, we do it for 20 minutes, but really you can do it, the science says that you can do it for 11 minutes a week. So if you say doing that 3 times a week, you're really only doing sort of 4 minutes per time. So it's a 4-minute practice. It's 4 minutes of training for yourself to sit there, sit in the cold, in discomfort, feel what it feels like to sit in the discomfort, knowing that you're releasing stuff that needs to be released, to come out the other side, feeling the invigoration of coming out, what it feels like to come out the other side, of letting that stuff go. And you get that in 4 minutes. So it doesn't have to be a whole season, a whole period of your lifetime that you've got to go through. It's not a great big breakup or anything that feels very lengthy to feel what it feels like to get to the other side, but to sit in it for a very short time. I also, you know, something like yin yoga is another one, where you're sitting in the discomfort of releasing for a period of time to get the reward of it. And there again, you're sitting in a posture for 3 to 5 minutes, feeling, pushing yourself to the edge of where you're at, knowing that the minute you release that, you're going to have the rebound effect, which is absolutely fantastic. So those little practices almost train you to get used to playing in the sensation of playing between discomfort and release, and getting the joy of what comes from that on the other side. You know, I obviously believe in shifting yourselves into different spaces and places where you also letting go of your familiarity, cleansing yourself of your everyday life to go and live in somebody else's existence for one. Yes, it might be in a hotel, but preferably not. Preferably engaging in a, perhaps again, a slightly uncomfortable way of moving into somebody else's life, only because you're only going to get reward out of it at the end. And I think that's the thing for me with most cleansing practices, is even though they feel uncomfortable when you're going through them, the reward is absolutely worth it. Anything you let go of that doesn't serve you, you're going to get reward with on the other side. And so it's just, and I think the more little ones you do, the easier the big ones become. And the 1 or 2 big ones, you're seeing the reward of the 1 or 2 big ones, makes it worthwhile to do it again. And as you're saying earlier, I think the earlier you start training yourself into that, the easier it becomes when you're older, when you actually need it probably a little bit more.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, I think that's very cool. I think that's actually perfect. I mean, is there anything else you want to say about it?
No, I'll think about it. I'll come up with something amazing at 3 o'clock in the morning, but currently
you can just send me a voice message. Just record it. I'm going to stop the recording because it's perfect recording.
Yeah, just in case we come up with a pearl.
Yeah. No, because it's also, yeah, it's interesting because I feel that at the moment, I feel that people suffer so much because they can't let go of things. You know, they're holding on to ideas and belief systems that they really suffer in, and physically, you know, holding on to physical things and in their bodies. And it is such a root of suffering to hold on to things that don't longer serve you, and responding from old patterns and belief systems that are something of your past. So to practice, as you were saying, letting go of things and cleansing the lifestyle, the people, that guess what we're all in at the moment.
And as with the food cleanse, or, you know, the physical cleanse, you don't judge what you've consumed. You consumed it, and now you're moving it through, and you're just cleansing it through your digestive system to make your digestive system function optimally and move through sluggishness. And it's the same thing with non-nutrition based cleansing, not internal cleansing, where it served you. And it's remembering that at the time, it served you. Whatever your past things are, whatever your childhood traumas are, at the time they served you. You had defense mechanisms places that served you to survive. Your friends that you built, you acquired along the way, served you to at the time that you needed them. And it's to honor the fact that they did serve you, and then let it go. The food nourished you, and now it's time to let it go. It's time to let it out of your system and let it go. Honor it, let it go.
Well, I think that actually as human beings, letting go of things is the hardest thing. But I know even for myself, I want to hold on to the good things and that they are so momentary, and everything comes and goes is something it's hard for me. It's hard to accept and to constantly let it go. And I mean, ultimately, we even let go of the body, and that's something we don't even want to face or think about because we just are part of a huge reality, the bigger reality we live in. So,
and that's for me where when I use the analogy of nature, it makes it so much easier for me because nature does it with such ease.
Yeah,
nature doesn't. There's no bird that holds on to summer or a flower that holds on to spring. It is though they have those moments, and then they move through, and then knowing that the next spring and the next summer will always come again. It will always come again.
Yeah, it's part of the natural process. But this is also part of why we're so removed from nature, because we don't trust the natural process of life, like the natural healing of the body, the natural cleansing of everything that is, the movements that we all are inevitable.
So I wanted to say also, for those who are interested in long-term health and finding new ways of healing, join us for try a month, try 3 months, and see what happens in your entire system. And if you're watching this, like and subscribe, because we really are wanting to create a platform for multiple healing modalities. And there's so many healing platforms out there and so many people talking about healing. And the more the merrier. That's where we are in the world. Healing is happening, and it's exciting and it's beautiful.